Good evening. It's Friday, 28th of March, and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Quake calamity. A 7.7 magnitude earthquake strikes the South and Southeast Asian region. King's health. King Charles hospitalized after cancer treatment side effects. Global art. Art Basel, Hong Kong opens with international flair.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Yasiru Bitana.
Good evening. We start off with some breaking news in the region. A 7.7 magnitude quake has hit Myanmar in the city of Mandalay, with tremors felt across Thailand and in China. A strong aftershock of 6-point magnitude also struck Myanmar, where scores died after a mosque collapsed. The death toll is expected to rise, with Myanmar's ruling military saying many civilians were killed and injured. The quake triggered the collapse of buildings hundreds of miles away in Thailand. Dozens of people have died in the nation's capital, and authorities are racing to rescue people believed to be trapped under the rubble of an under-construction high-rise in the city. The Thai Prime Minister announced a state of emergency in the country. Meanwhile, Bangkok has been declared area of disaster. King Charles III was briefly hospitalized following side effects from cancer treatments. Though upcoming engagements are cancelled, the monarch is recovering at home and remains in good spirits.
Britain's King Charles was admitted to hospital for a short time on Thursday after experiencing side effects from cancer treatment. That's according to Buckingham Palace. The palace declined to give any details of the side effects, but a royal source described the setback as a, quote, minor bump in the road. The source said the king's recovery was continuing in a very positive direction and that he was in good form. The palace said he had returned to his home, Clarence House, and that as a precaution, his engagements for Friday would be rescheduled. The 76-year-old king has been undergoing treatment since he was diagnosed with an unspecified form of cancer in February last year.
Senator Marco Rubio announced that the State Department has revoked more than 300 student visas as part of an effort to deport pro-Palestinian activists in US universities, sparking debates over free speech and academic freedom.
On Thursday local time, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that the State Department has revoked the visas of over 300 foreign students. The action is part of the Trump administration's broader initiative to identify and expel individuals who are believed to be supportive of Hamas. Rubio told reporters on a visit to Guyana, "Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visas." Among those affected is Rumeysa Öztürk, a 30-year-old Turkish national and PhD student at Tufts University who was apprehended on Tuesday. The Department of Homeland Security alleges that Öztürk engaged in activities supporting Hamas, though specific evidence has not been disclosed.
Raging wildfires in South Korea have doubled in size, claiming at least 28 lives. Authorities warn that the extreme weather conditions may worsen the disaster, which has already devastated thousands of hectares.
Wildfires raging in South Korea doubled in size on Thursday from a day earlier, with authorities now calling the blazes the worst natural fire disaster in the nation's history. Over 24 people have been killed since multiple blazes broke out in South Korea's southeastern region on Saturday. The largest of the fires has burned more than 81,000 acres, making it South Korea's biggest single forest fire on record. Experts have said it showed extremely unusual spread in terms of its scale and speed. The military has released stocks of aviation fuel to help keep firefighting helicopters flying to douse the flames, which have displaced tens of thousands of people and incinerated historic temples. Parts of the Buddha's Gunsa temple, believed to have been built in the year 681, were left in ruins. The wildfires have been moving rapidly eastward, spreading almost to the coast, as they are spurred on by gusty winds and with dry conditions. While the meteorological agency has forecast some rain for the southwest, precipitation is expected to be under 5 millimeters for most of the affected areas. The Korea Forest Service's minister told a briefing he did not anticipate that amount to be of much help in extinguishing the fire.
Turkish authorities have detained approximately 1,900 individuals during protest against the arrest of the mayor of Istanbul. the government has dismissed international criticism, labeling the statements as prejudiced.
Although the opposition party has promised to stop large protests outside city halls, Turkish youth continue to demonstrate in smaller, more disparate groups, such as at this university campus Thursday, where they were met with water cannons. Turkey's opposition has called for the boycott of firms with ties to the government, including holding companies, coffee shops, and television channels, as part of protests against the arrest of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's Justice and Development Party has ruled Turkey for more than 2 decades, becoming synonymous with the Turkish state itself. In a televised address, Erdogan called the protests irresponsible, vowing to support organizations that are being targeted by the opposition. Officials on Tuesday said police had arrested over 1,400 people accused of taking part in illegal rallies. They have not updated that figure since, despite continued arrests. İmamoğlu, speaking from prison via social media Wednesday, denounced police violence against protesters.
I cannot call them police because honorable police would not commit this cruelty against the young children of the nation.
Members of the Istanbul Municipal Council voted on Wednesday to choose a proxy mayor to stand in for İmamoğlu, with the majority opposition party selecting his deputy.
A tourist submarine sank off Egypt's Red Sea coast near Hurghada, resulting in the deaths of 6 Russian nationals. Authorities have launched an investigation into the cause of the incident, which also saw dozens injured.
6 people have died after a tourist submarine sank off the Egyptian Red Sea resort of Hurghada, the local governor's office said on Facebook on Thursday. The dead were all Russian citizens. The Russian consulate in Hurghada said the submarine, named Sinbad, had 45 Russian tourists on board in addition to crew. The other 39 people were rescued and taken to their hotels and hospitals, the consulate added, while local officials confirmed no passengers or crew were still missing. The submarine was equipped with large viewing portholes and able to dive to depths of more than 80 feet, according to the company's website. The Red Sea is a major hub for Egypt's crucial tourism industry, in which Russian tourists play an increasing part. There have been several incidents of tourist boats capsizing in recent months. A United Nations report ranked Egypt's tourism revenues at $14.1 billion in 2024, more than twice what it earns from the Suez Canal.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Israel's Knesset has approved a controversial law granting politicians greater influence over judicial appointments. The legislation has sparked renewed protest and raised concerns about the erosion of democratic checks and balances.
It sparked some of the biggest anti-government demonstrations in Israeli history. But on Thursday morning, Israel's parliament passed legislation to overhaul the judiciary, defying years of street protests. Under the new law, the 9-member committee that chooses judges will include the Justice Minister, another minister, 1 lawmaker from the government and the opposition, and 2 public representatives. 1 public representative will be appointed by the majority, the other by the opposition. For more than 2 years, the legislation has driven a wedge through Israeli society, with weekly protests in cities such as Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Critics say it marks an authoritarian shift, accusing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of using it to quash investigations into corruption. The opposition has filed a petition with the Supreme Court to challenge the vote. Netanyahu's government is already locked in a struggle with the judiciary after it moved to dismiss Israel's Attorney General and this man, the head of Shin Bet, Ronan Bar.
In response to President Trump's 25% tariff on imported vehicles, Canada has announced plans for retaliatory trade actions aimed at minimizing domestic impact while targeting US industries. European leaders have also threatened countermeasures.
This was the third summit of its kind, bringing together what's been called the Coalition of the Willing. European leaders gathered in Paris reaffirmed their support for Ukraine. But beyond the show of solidarity, the continent is still divided on security guarantees. French President Emmanuel Macron said a Franco-British idea for boots on the ground had been backed by some, but not all, countries. Italy has rejected sending any force, saying troops would need to be part of a UN mission. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer dismissed the divisions, instead insisting that Europe was finally getting its act together.
European leaders. This is Europe mobilising together behind the peace process on a scale that we haven't seen for decades.
Ukraine's President Zelensky was buoyant too, but speaking to journalists, he admitted many questions remained over a possible European force, and he urged the US to do more to stand up to Russia.
We want the United States to be stronger. I agree with Emmanuel Macron. We all need this. It's not just our wish, it's a necessity. We need the United States to be stronger in dealing with Russia.
There was, however, widespread agreement at the summit to avoid easing sanctions on Russia until a ceasefire deal is reached.
European leaders have pledged to strengthen Ukraine's military but have not reached consensus on establishing a reassurance force to ensure security in the event of a ceasefire with Russia. Discussions are ongoing amid varying national interests.
Earlier this week, President Donald Trump signed off on 25% tariffs on all cars and auto parts imported into the United States. In response, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney called it a direct attack on his country and vowed to respond to Trump's latest tariff policy.
President Trump announced 25% tariffs against our auto industry.
Carney said Canada's longtime bilateral relationship with the U.S. involving the economy, security, and military cooperation is over. Instead, he vowed Canada would respond with retaliatory tariffs that will have maximum impact on the U.S. On the other side of the U.S. border, Mexico is negotiating for an exemption for its critical auto industry. Speaking from Washington after holding talks with U.S. officials, Mexico's Economy Minister Marcelo Ebrard said negotiation talks are ongoing to ensure that Mexico gets preferential treatment. The minister said that with the recent tariff policies of the U.S. administration, Mexico must protect jobs and economic activity in the country. While Mexico is seeking a more peaceful approach to Trump's tariff policies, both Canada and the European Union have been looking to fight the U.S. president's tariffs. In response, Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social on Thursday and said that larger tariffs could be placed on the EU and Canada if they work jointly to do economic harm to the USA. While the EU delayed its first set of retaliatory tariffs, including a 50% tariff on U.S. bourbon, Trump threatened to impose a 200% tariff on all wines and other alcoholic products from the EU if the bloc went ahead with tariffs.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news right after this. Welcome back. A pilot project at a German sewage treatment plant is pioneering the conversion of biogas into climate-neutral methanol for the use as shipping fuel. This initiative represents a significant step towards sustainable maritime transport.
Could biogas be turned into a climate-neutral fuel for shipping? A scientist leading a pilot project at a southern German sewage treatment plant believes it's possible. Operators at the facility in Mannheim say their breakthrough technology turns biogas, CO2, into e-methanol using hydrogen. Here is Francisco Vidal Vazquez, co-founder of the Ikados climate technology startup, which co-developed the idea.
What makes it a breakthrough is two things. One is that we use our patented process for combination of CO2 capture and methanol synthesis, and the second is that we are operating this plant dynamically, using directly as produced renewable electricity like solar and wind.
For now, Vidal Vasquez says the sewage treatment plant produces a maximum of around 50 kg per day of methanol. In comparison, the chemical industry in Germany currently consumes around 1.1 million metric tons of methanol, according to the German Energy Agency. However, Vasquez believes the demand for their product is limitless.
In North Carolina, a man donned a bear costume to successfully deter a black bear from his property. This unconventional tactic was captured on video, sparking discussions on wildlife encounters and safety measures.
It's a bear versus bear confrontation. Watch as one of the beasts raises its arms to fight. Wait a minute, that's not a real bear. It's a dude in a costume. His name is Rodney Clark, and he's a bear of a man himself at 280 pounds. He's getting suited up to scare away the black bear frolicking in his backyard in Asheville, North Carolina. After waving his arms frantically, Rodney busts a move, freaking out the real bear, who hauls off back to the woods. A short time later, the brazen bear returns. There's Rodney again, still in his bear suit for round 2. His gambit works a second time. Rodney admits he looks a little ridiculous, but he's not at all embarrassed.
Art Basel Hong Kong has opened its doors, showcasing a diverse array of artworks and special events. The fair offers art enthusiasts an opportunity to engage with contemporary pieces from around the world.
Finally, Art Basel Hong Kong 2025 opened to the public on Friday at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Center, featuring 240 galleries from 42 countries. An off-site art installation has also been created at a high-end shopping center near the official show venue. The fair showcases a diverse range of artistic practices, including performance and digital art, with over half of the participating galleries originating from the Asia-Pacific region. Art Basel 2025, the largest and most prestigious event in the Asia-Pacific region, will run from March 28th to 30th.
Well, that's a wrap from all of us here at World News Tonight. Stay tuned as Akhil Qureshi will be joining you shortly with the Nightly Business Report. I'm Yasiru Vitana, and we are leaving you with the scenes of Dubai mosques lighting up with Islamic patterns during Ramadan. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.